It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I had the privilege to interview the Minnesota State's Mavericks head women's basketball coach, Coach Emilee Thiesse. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college women's basketball?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I actually did not think I wanted to get into college coaching. My dad is a or was a high school basketball coach, and so I was raised as a coach's kid. And honestly, my older sister is a college coach also, and she was in college coaching before me. And I just put my foot down and I was like, I'm not going to coach. I'm not doing it. I just felt like it was, seeing both sides of the time that you put in as a college coach and a high school coach, and just some of the balance stuff that I was concerned about. I just remember, like, I changed my major about 3 or 4 times in college, thinking, I'm going to find the right thing. And my college coach at the time, Amy Stevens, I just remember her always telling me, like, I don't know why you keep fighting it. You're going to be a college coach someday. And I just was like, no, I'm not. I'm not. I'm going to be an athletic trainer. I'm going to be a PT. I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to try all these things. And sure enough, about my senior year of college, I was just like, I can't find an area, no matter how much I try to keep telling myself it's not coaching. That's just where my passion is. And yeah, so after that, I kind of helped around my 5th year as a student assistant, and then had a great opportunity to kind of move into a graduate assistant role post college. So honestly, it wasn't till late in my college career that I actually decided college coaching was going to be for me.
Of course, what was that experience like going to Nebraska Kendry and getting to put on that basketball uniform for them?
Yeah, awesome. Kearney had an incredible tradition of women's basketball. I think they had been to the NCAA tournament maybe 3 or 4 years consecutive prior to my freshman year there, and they were really on the rise at that time. Again, very fortunate to have had the chance to actually play for my sister. She was a graduate assistant at Kearney my freshman year. So that was a really neat experience there too. She played basketball at the University of Nebraska, and then she went to Kearney as a GA, and she always had spoken so highly of that program, and just what Amy Stevens had done there, building the tradition there, and just in the state of Nebraska, obviously the Huskers are king, but Kearney was really receiving a lot of notoriety for kind of where they were at with their program. And so I was really excited to have a chance to go there, be a part of such a great program. And like I said, have a chance to have my sister on the coaching staff during my first year there, which was awesome.
Of course, what was that experience like getting to have your sister on the coaching staff with you?
My first year was just about trying to keep my head above water. I think most kids it is, that freshman year of just like being on your own and how to balance the crazy academic schedule, and then just don't be late for practice and just trying to keep your head above water. So I was 7.5 hours away from home. I'm originally from Western South Dakota. And, so it was really nice to have, a family member that was close that could kind of help me through the stuff of, I don't know where I'm supposed to go for this. And, just any of the personal stuff that kind of goes on. It was great to have that. Plus your big sister, how crazy and amazing to, have somebody to look up to who'd been a college athlete, who knew what the program that we were building and what the expectations were for that. And yeah, I'm obviously partial, but my sister's pretty incredible. And so playing for her was awesome. So many things that I learned from her in that 1 year as a player, but also as a coach, just I think also really transformed me and into kind of the desire to be a college coach.
Of course, what was that experience like getting to represent Nebraska Kearney and getting to put on that uniform for them?
Yeah, it was awesome. Like I said, their program was really on the rise, and I had a very limited role there, especially in my first few years in the program. So just having a chance to be a part of continuing to build that program, to continue to be at the top of the RMAC. Over those 4 years, 3 RMAC championships and 4 NCAA tournament appearances was a lot of fun. I mean, we were had the longest home winning streak of any level during my time there, and it was just it was pretty awesome to just have that type of sustained success over that career, and obviously to have some incredible basketball teammates who are now in the Hall of Fame there, and there is just a lot of pride to have that opportunity.
Coming out of college, what was it like at getting started and becoming a grad assistant for South Dakota Jackrabbits?
Yeah. South Dakota State had actually won the national championship, um, gosh, maybe the year before I got there, or shortly before, maybe 2 years before I got there. And so I was very aware of their success. And then it was actually during their first 2 years of transition from Division II to Division I. And so that provided a really unique experience in that, in terms of the coaching staff, I was a graduate assistant, but at that time we only had one full-time assistant. So both the GAs on staff essentially had the duties of a full-time assistant because we weren't quite at the full staff yet of the 4 full-time coaches. So we were getting so much experience, doing every other scout, travel, just every bit of what a full-time assistant gets to do, all the recruiting, all those kind of things right out of college. And then, our very first Division II game was against the university, or excuse me, our very first Division I game was against the University of Kentucky. And I mean, what a great experience as, again, a kid right out of college, having a chance to scout that game. And actually, I think that was our very first Division I win. And so that was incredible. I mean, learning from Aaron Johnston, who is an incredible coach who has had so much success, but really groomed us as an assistant as well to like really think the game. Our voice mattered. We were very active in staff meetings and game time decisions and practices and all of those kind of things. And, that just, I think, really cultivated my excitement to be a college coach. Because as I mentioned, it wasn't until my senior year of college that I really thought that, college coaching was going to be for me. And then to have that chance to get into it at such a high level with so much success early on, that really planted the seed with me.
Of course, being a grad assistant, what was that experience like, as you said, transitioning from Division II to Division I while being that grad assistant?
Yeah, that was intense, because we didn't have a conference. So everybody was involved in scheduling because we had to fill a full schedule with no conference games. And so that's a lot of work. I think the first year for sure, I can't remember on the second year, we could still play a mixed schedule. So we were still playing maybe some Division II games because trying to fill a full schedule of D1 games was next to impossible. But yeah, we were bouncing all across the country. I mean, we were playing in California one weekend, and then we were down in Arkansas, and then we were everywhere because we just had to get games that we could get. We were in the Virgin Islands. I remember that first year playing 3 Division I games down there, and yeah, it just it was intense. It was awesome at the same time. The South Dakota fan base is incredible, and especially in Brookings and South Dakota State. the Jackrabbit family is incredible. So it was just a really neat experience to have that type of support for our program throughout that transition as well.
What was your experience like going to Drake and becoming the first full-time assistant coach in your coaching career?
Yeah, that was great. As I said, I think AJ just really groomed me as an assistant coach very well in those 2 years at South Dakota State. It was hard to leave SDSU. That just there's such an incredible family feel there and so much support in that community. And being a South Dakota girl, having a chance to be back in South Dakota was pretty awesome. Um, but obviously, the GA position is only a 2-year position, and so as my time there was winding down, I actually had gotten a call from Amy Stevens, who I played for 3 years at Kearney. And she was then at the head coach at Drake. And so that was a really neat experience and opportunity to have a chance to go, coach with the coach that I had so much respect for as a player over those first 3 years. And, she was doing some great things at Drake. And so that was a really awesome experience. I could take the great things that I had learned from AJ in that 2-year span, and also the familiarity I had with Amy Stevens and her program, and take that to Drake. And that was awesome. I loved living in Des Moines. A really great experience and a great time in my life there.
What was that experience like getting to coach alongside your coach that coached you in college?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was unique. I mean, I think it's just so interesting. You go from, you know, um, being a player coach relationship where, there's always that level of fear. There's always that level of, respect on, I guess what's the word I'm looking for, but like more of a managerial role, maybe, where, she's overlooking us and trying to keep us in line and meeting goals and those kind of things, to working alongside her. And obviously, as the head coach, she was still my boss, but sitting next to her in staff meetings and, feeling more like, coworkers as opposed to, the player coach relationship, that was a unique experience, and I got to hear so much more about the decisions and the why from the behind the scenes kind of thing. So that was great, and just some incredible coworkers and staff members that I was able to work alongside there that really groomed me more in the recruiting side of things. Put me really hands-on into, taking ownership of specific recruits in specific states, building connections with coaches and AAU coaches, high school coaches in some of our key states that we recruited at Drake, taking a lot of the on-campus recruiting responsibilities. And so I think that really was the area I grew the most in my time at Drake, was just how involved I was in the recruiting side of things. And I think that really was what set me up for kind of my next move with, moving into that recruiting coordinator position.
Of course, what was that 2007 season like, taking Drake to the NCAA tournament?
I guess, again, the word I would use is intense, because that year, we had the perfect storm or the worst storm. I'm not sure how you would say it, but everything seemed to go wrong that year. We had so many great returners coming back, high expectations, preseason player of the year in the conference. We just had so many great things going for us that year. And then it just seemed like the injury bug just knocked us down one at a time. And it was, you could just kind of see those key players, just starting to drop. And I can just remember a road trip that season where, we took 7 kids on the road with us, and, we turn around to talk to the bench. And there's only 1 or 2 kids sitting there in uniform, maybe one checking in. And, you're just like, oh my gosh, that you just knew they were trying to give it your all. But, the grind of a season with the injury bug was tough. And, and then we were in a spot at that time in the Missouri Valley Conference where you could bid to host the conference tournament. And so we had bid it out and won it. And I think we might have been like the 8th seed in that tournament. We had a average, 500 type year that year. And yeah, we went on to win 4 games in 5 days, 4 games in 4 days, something like that. It was back to back to back to back. And it was incredible. We were lucky to be on our home court because our fans just willed us to win. It was the most incredible heart and gutty performance from our team. We had players just stepping up and making big play after big play. And I think that year just taught me so much more about, as a coach, how to, it's one thing to go into a season with a game plan and an idea of who you are and what you want to do with that team, but then also to understand that the team has to fit what you're doing too. And as we started to lose some pieces with those injuries that year, we really had to kind of scrap everything that we went into that year, our offense, our defense, our style of play, like so many things we had to change to really make that work based on what we had for numbers. And it was really good for me as a young coach to learn, making adjustments and making sure that you don't just be a hard-headed, this is my philosophy, we're going to go this way and this is the way it has to be. But instead, we have to make sure that it fits what we have. And I've taken that a lot for the course of my head coaching experience, is just the stop, reflect, and is this really what's fitting us the best right now? So that I think taught me a ton in that year. And that was so many really incredible memories. I've had the fortune to coach in a handful of NCAA tournament appearances, but that one was really memorable for me. And then obviously we went on to go to the NCAA tournament as the 16 seed. We played Tennessee in the first round, and yeah, that was pretty intense to coach against Pat Summitt and Candace Parker in the first round of the NCAA tournament. But really, really cool experience.
Of course, what was that experience like, getting to coach against Pat Summitt and Candace Parker?
Yeah, just awe-inspiring. You're going into all the details of the NCAA tournament with, the press conferences before shoot-arounds and all those kind of things. And, we walk out onto the court and Pat Summitt's walking off with this contingency of press following her. And it's just like, again, as a young coach or any coach and with our players too, just the like awe of like, gosh, that's Pat Summitt. Like, she laid the groundwork for all of us. And yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, Candace Parker, I mean, just being able to scout her and just watch her highlight film was awesome. We had a secret goal to make sure that she didn't dunk on us in the game. We just wanted to get out of the game without her dunking on us. But I mean, again, just an incredible basketball player, and to be on the court, not just in, some game that was scheduled, but because we had earned an opportunity to be there in the NCAA tournament, playing against such an incredible basketball team with such an incredible history was really impactful.
Of course, what was that feeling like, going back to South Dakota to become the recruitment coordinator after becoming an assistant coach?
Yeah, it was awesome. Again, it was hard to leave Drake. It's hard to make those changes when you built such great connections in the athletic department, within your coaching staff, but then also, just with those players that you spend so much time with, and you're building those, connections through recruiting and all of those kind of things. It was hard to leave. But, I remember when AJ called me and, just talked to me about, the opportunity to be taking that next step as a recruiting coordinator. And, obviously just had followed them over the 3 years that I was at Drake, and just their continued success as they had gotten deeper into the Division I, flow, and just so much respect for what he does and how he does it, and their programs and how they play. I just couldn't pass up that opportunity to go back to my home state and be on a staff with Aaron Johnston, building a national contender, consistently in the NCAA tournament program. So so that was amazing. And as I mentioned, the opportunity that I learned at Drake with becoming, getting so much experience as a recruiter really, made me confident that I was ready for that next step in my career.
Of course, what was that feeling like when you did take that next step to become a head coach and come to Minnesota State?
Yeah, that's an intense step, and honestly, um, I wasn't ready, or I didn't think I was ready. And probably you never are until you actually get forced into being in that seat. But I had just gotten married a year previous to that. And we loved South Dakota. And, my husband was an SDSU grad, and, we really had settled down our roots, and we were loving it in Brookings. And again, the team was incredible, and I was having great experiences and loving being back in Brookings. But I can remember one time I had taken my husband on a recruiting trip with me to Mankato. Um, just on a whim. And he's originally from Fairmont, which is only about an hour or so from Mankato. And when we came here recruiting, he was, talking to me about what a great community Mankato is, because it's kind of the hub for where he's from. And, showing me where his sister's house was, and just, some things. And he just had really spoken really highly of Mankato. And MSU, Minnesota State women's basketball team, had also won a national championship, just a handful of years prior as well. And so I remember watching them through their run of the NCAA tournament and their national run. And I just had so much respect for this program. And then, as we were kind of driving through Mankato, I was just like, man, this is an awesome community. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Brookings, a little maybe bigger town, but we just had kind of talked about, like, man, if there were a place for us to kind of settle down, like, this would be it. Like, we love Mankato, and what a great university. And it was just kind of in passing on a recruiting trip, we had just talked about it. And sure enough, when the position opened up, I was just like, oh no, not yet. I don't want it to open. I'm not ready yet. I wanted it to be a few years down the road. I just wasn't sure that was the right timing. I had just found out I was pregnant. There was just some things that was just like, gosh, this can't be the right timing. But this is where we want to be. And this is a great job. And I had always wanted, to pursue a position at this university. And so, I went after it pretty hard. And yeah, I think, like I said, I don't think you're ever ready. Even 2 years down the road, I probably wouldn't have felt any more prepared for it. But yeah, AJ was just an incredible mentor through that experience, and just kind of talking me through, the experience that I had and how I was prepared for it. And until you're the one in that seat making those decisions and making the calls, it's an intense move to go from an assistant position to a head coaching position. But it's been incredible, and I love it here.
Of course, what was that transition like from you, from going from not just being an assistant to a head coach, but also being a wife to a mother recently?
Yeah. I'm so blessed. My husband played college football, and so he understands the lifestyle of a college athlete. He is all in on, just understanding the time commitment that it takes, but he also just loves the excitement around being in college athletics. And so he actually worked in the college athletic department here for a year in the fundraising kind of side of things. But he gets it, and he loves the Mavericks. He is so excited to have the team over for dinners, and just all those kind of things. So that transition was awesome, and has been incredible. I could not do what I do without him, for sure. The transition to becoming a mother, that was, I think I've used the word intense a lot on this interview, but that was an intense move. Just because, as I mentioned, when I got hired, I was 5 months pregnant. And my first child was born in December, which is not an ideal timing for any basketball coach, but especially in your first year as a head basketball coach. So that, yeah, again, I think I was just trying to keep my head above water in that first year. I just was learning so much about this university, about this conference, about how to be a head coach, and then how to be a mother on top of that. And so my assistants, I was so lucky to retain Amy Sander and Jessica Keller at the time here, as they were assistants with the previous head coach, and they were amazing. I could not have done it without them that first year. They were so loyal to me. I missed 1 week right in the middle of the season after I had my daughter, and they just took right over, and everything went smoothly. And yeah, like I said, I think it's all still a blur. I don't know if I remember much from that first year, but those two and my husband made it such a, I wouldn't say a breeze, but they sure helped me through that first year, no question.
Of course, what was that feeling like the first time you got to step onto the court as the head coach?
Um, Exciting. I think I expected to be a little more like nervous or questioning myself or any of those kind of things, but honestly, I was just super excited to have that chance to have my team compete. It really wasn't about me or what I was going to do out there, or if I made the right calls or the wrong calls or anything like that. But I was just excited to have the team that we had been working with through the entire preseason, and that we'd been watching through those first handful of practices, to have a chance to compete. My first game as a coach was actually an exhibition game at the University of Minnesota. So that was unique because I don't know if you've ever seen their court, but they have the raised court. So I was like, as a new coach anyway, like how much should I stand or sit or pace or any of those kind of things. But then doing it on an elevated court at about 6.5 months pregnant was interesting. But I was also fortunate to come into a program where the cupboards were not bare. We had a lot of talent. We had just some incredible players, some great chemistry, and our team competed, and we had an awesome year that year. I think we finished 26-5 and made the second round of the NCAA tournament. And yeah, like I said, I was just excited to see them play and excited to start competing with them.
Of course, what was that feeling like the first time you got your win as a head coach?
Um, yeah, it was great. It was great. I just never have really thought about it from my perspective, or, I got a win. It was like, okay, this is the expectations of this program. As I mentioned, a ton of success, had come off a national championship just a few years before I had gotten here. A lot of talent returning. There was an expectation that we were going to be successful and we were going to win, and we had proved that in that exhibition game against the Gophers. It was a very tight game all the way down the stretch. And so, yeah, I think it was just like, okay, let's go. That's what we do, and that's what we're going to do. And congratulations, Mavericks. Let's get ready for the next one.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've built for the women's basketball program?
Yeah, I think the culture that is really important for us within this program is just the culture of never settling. And we have some core values in our program. We don't have rules really within our program, but our values are more built on the idea that we kind of over encompassing of honoring the tradition of this program. Because we have had such a great history within this program, it's not about the success necessarily in how we honor the tradition, but more how we do it. And again, I'm now in my 12th year as the head coach here, but I still feel like I'm a new coach, and I want the alums that maybe didn't play for me to watch this team and to be so proud of the type of player that are on the court, and like the respect that they show to their opponents, to the officials, in the way that they compete and leave it all on the floor, and just not taking shortcuts, and just the way they handle their attitude and their approach on the court, and just to feel proud of the type of players that are on the court. And then, just how that carries into off the court in the classroom and, when we travel and just all of those kind of things. And so I think that's really the culture, that's the most important, that we really emphasize a lot. And I think success becomes a byproduct of that when you hold yourself to those standards. That's the most important for us. I think our team has great chemistry. They love each other. And again, I think it's all because of those core values. And, when you hold yourself to that standard, it's easy to, have a ton of respect for the people around you as well.
Of course, throughout your 12 seasons, what are some of your biggest coaching accomplishments at Minnesota State?
Oh, I think one that I'm, extremely proud of is our retention here. All the players that have completed their eligibility here have graduated. We really don't have a lot of players that transfer out of our program, and those are, especially now, that's more common, and I get it. That's not a bad thing all the time, but I think because of the culture that we just talked about, the players that come here, they feel supported with their teammates and their coaches. And this is an awesome campus. This is an awesome campus and an awesome community. We are funded well. We're taken care of by our athletic department. And, I think a lot of those things, I think our student athletes, they really love it here. And so that's something that's important to us. We want that connection to be lifelong, and it's not just what can you do for us, but hey, invest into this university and we'll invest into you. And those are things I think that are most important, more than wins and losses.
Who are some of the teams that you face each week in your conference?
Yeah, so I mean, our conference is typically, or is most centrally located around the state of Minnesota. We have a couple schools from South Dakota, one from Nebraska, and a couple from North Dakota. So it's kind of right in this particular region. Obviously, University of Minnesota Duluth is in our conference. They just came off of an incredible season where they finished national runner-up. We ended up losing to them in the second round of the NCAA tournament. So they're an incredible basketball program, and they've done some great things over the last couple of years. St. Cloud State is another great program in our conference that has really had some sustained success over the course of the last number of years. Our conference is so strong. Honestly, it's like every game is a big game, and there's such a history with the schools around here. Northern State, Augustana, University of Sioux Falls, Wayne State has had some really incredible teams in the past as well. Concordia, St. Paul, Winona State. There's some really, really good programs that we've had some great history with. And so that's generally, most of our road trips are somewhere within about that 2.5 hours or so from Mankato in the South Division. And then as we go into some of the teams that are a little bit more in the north, it's somewhere 4 to 7-ish hours or so.
What does that home game atmosphere look like when teams like Minnesota Duluth come to home?
Yeah, that's it. There's some really good environments. Our conference is awesome because we play double headers with our men. And then also we play Fridays and Saturdays typically in our conference, with some games sprinkled in on maybe a Thursday, but generally we play Friday, Saturdays. And so that helps with maybe families in the area that are coming to games, or our players' families and those kind of things that are traveling to games, where you don't have to take a day off of work or those kind of things. You can make the games on Fridays and Saturdays. But I do think the doubleheader men's and women's is you get your bang for your buck. You can catch two great games every single time, and so those are great. I think back in the old days, so we've been in the NSIC, the Northern Sun Conference, maybe 13 years now, 14 years, something like that. So prior to that, it was the North Central Conference. And so a lot of our alums are more particular to the teams that we're in the North Central Conference with us, like Augustana is a kind of an old rival for many years. And so anytime that we play a team like Augustana, especially, there seems to be a little bit more of kind of that nostalgic rivalry, and the alums and maybe some of the community members who've known those long-standing rivalries get pretty excited about those games.
Of course, what does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to play collegiate basketball?
Yeah, I think that's different for every program, and kind of how, maybe they handle the recruiting process in terms of timelines and the hows of it. I think in some ways, maybe the transfer portal has potentially changed some of how that recruitment goes for some high school players. For us particularly, we certainly recruit the portal, so I'm not gonna say that we don't. We just haven't hit it hard. I think for us specifically, we are more of 4-year players in our program, just because of our style is very unique. We play a full court press, and very up tempo style, like very up tempo. And so for us, sometimes, it can take players a year or two to really get confident in our style. And so generally, we'll look for players that, can kind of come in as freshmen and kind of, stay in that 4-year plan. But as I mentioned, I think there's always a need for bringing in experienced players and being able to fit different needs within your program that maybe have opened up over the course of time. So certainly there's a need for transfer options as well. But, I think in general that the process of recruiting, it starts with, just from our perspective, the early evaluations from, the freshman and sophomore year, really starting to kind of figure out what we're going to need in those classes and what players and positions kind of maybe start to fit us. I think being able to build those early connections, with players that maybe have come to our camps, players that have come to games and have reached out to try to build connections with us has been helpful too. And maybe speeding up that process a little bit earlier with some of those younger kids. And then, really, I think, that sophomore year gets to be a big year as we're starting to really kind of key in on those kids. And then as we hit that summer after their sophomore year, and we can start, communicating with them, calls and texts and, emails and messages and all those kind of things. That's where it really starts to pick up in that summertime where we can, build those deeper connections. Because, really, as I mentioned, if the culture is so important and we want kids that want to be here for 4 years and understand kind of what we're building, we really want that connection to be there before we move forward with offers.
Of course, what does that process look like for the official visit when those prospective student athletes come to Minnesota State?
Again, I think official visits can look different depending on where those individual players are at in the timeline of the recruiting. We're pretty fortunate in just the timing that we've typically done our recruiting process through, where we generally have our classes hopefully pretty rounded out by the time the summer is over. So they've already made their unofficial visits, they've already received their offers, and they've already, committed to become a Maverick. So we generally use our official visits more as a chance to kind of bring all of our commits in on the same weekend. They get a chance to know each other, meet each other. The families get a chance to know each other and meet each other. Our players get a chance to meet them all together. And it's just really kind of getting those recruits excited about becoming Mavericks. We'll talk about what the national letter of intent looks like. We'll, attend a Maverick hockey game, do a lot of eating, a lot of those kind of things where it's more, they've already made their decision and hey, get excited, you get to be a Maverick in another year kind of thing. So that's generally how we use our official visits on a typical recruiting timeline, as I mentioned, with transfers or kids that might be later in the game. Those kind of players, obviously that's a little different where you're using the official visit to show them who you are and what you have to offer. But I think it's the similar idea of like, we want to get you as much time with our players as possible because that's the connection. That's the culture you need to be able to fit in with. And so, again, just hanging out, dinners, going to Maverick events, those kind of things. And then just kind of laying it out there of like, this is our community. This is kind of who we are as coaches and, just giving them that full 48 hours of Maverick.
Of course, as a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen getting to put on that Maverick purple jersey for the first time?
It's refreshing. It's fun to see a little of that just raw excitement, and especially again because freshmen coming in, they're trying to find their way, managing, as I mentioned, all those things with the personal, how do I fend for myself, and then also staying on top of my classes, and then I have this random schedule through the whole preseason of all these workouts and all these things to kind of manage, and then to have that chance to finally put your uniform on and get out there and just compete for the Mavericks. Like there's just a raw emotion that comes with that, and it's just super fun to just see that excitement and just kind of see it all come together for those young kids.
What is it like as a head coach to see those seniors putting that jersey on for the last time?
I think probably a little on the other extreme where it can be a little emotional. Fortunately, we've been in a position where we've been able to be in some sort of postseason every year, and so we don't know it's the last game. So that's nice. We're not emotional necessarily knowing that hey, this is the last time you're going to put that uniform on. But certainly at the end of the game when we know that was the last time they put that jersey on, it's emotional because like I said, it's more than just hey, another player that competed for the Mavericks, but there's a 2 to 3 year relationship before they ever even got here where we recruited them and got to know them and built that connection, and then they get here and it's family for 4 years while they're here. So man, you've spent 7 years getting to know these people, and just it's hard to see that end, and it's hard to know from their perspective that like, hey, this is basketball is over for me. So it's emotional, but it's also exciting knowing that great things are ahead for them too.
Of course, as a head coach, what is it like seeing those players go on and achieve great things outside of playing basketball, whether it's getting into coaching or getting into the real world?
Well, that's some of the greatest joys of being a coach is just to see former players just excelling, and just their families growing. And I love going to our former players' weddings. It's a personal goal of mine that I don't miss a wedding, no matter how far it is or whatever that looks like. If at all possible, I'm going to be at those weddings because it's a major life event, and it's fun to see that growth and being a part of that stage of these Maverick families also. But yeah, that's really what it's about, and that's why we challenge them the way we do now, is because we want them to grow and be better in their future. And so I think that's a big goal as a coach, is to prepare them that they will be successful in life after basketball.
Of course, what are some of your future plans for the Mavericks program moving forward?
Obviously sustained success, that's, if I just sat up here and just said, oh, we want to have fun and we want to, just be really good friends, that's, we do have goals. We want to have sustained success here, but for us to do that, it is built off of, that tireless work ethic, as I mentioned, with the full court press and the full court style of play that we play. There's a toughness that goes with that. But it's culture. We can't want to work our tails off if we don't love the person that's next to us that we're working our tail off for. And just that overall commitment that we're looking for. I think that's first and foremost, to be able to have the sustained success that we're looking for. Coming off of a year where we were 26-6 and the second highest win total in program history, second only to that national championship year. I think we have especially high expectations going into this next year. We had just one senior on last year's squad, so we return a lot this year, and so yeah, I think, as I mentioned, the expectations are really high this year, and that's something that we're really going to have to hold ourselves to a high standard this year to, what is our accountability to ourselves and to our teammates.
What advice would you give those freshmen entering their first year of collegiate basketball?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
What advice would you give those freshmen entering their first year of collegiate basketball?
I guess my greatest piece of advice is 2 feet in. I think that as that first year, there is so many different things. Just you're trying to manage a schedule that is very chaotic and hectic. There's always a learning curve of a whole new style. And then there's also sometimes some questions of like, am I good enough to be here? And, we're all used to being the best players on our programs that we came from, and then you're surrounded by great players. And so it's easy to question yourself, but the 1 foot in, 1 foot out, I think is a big reason that maybe the transfer portal has taken off in the way that it has. And, being 2 feet in is how you bet on yourself to be confident in yourself. 2 feet in is how you manage those busy schedules. And that's where you build those connections and those relationships that make it worth it on those rough days. So that would be my greatest piece of advice.
What advice would you give those college seniors looking to play professionally or go into coaching?
I think if you have an interest in playing professional basketball, certainly making sure that your coach knows your goals in that area. There's having somebody in your corner to help you find the opportunity is important. And the earlier that the better. Just because, there's more opportunity with, being able to reach out to, whether it's, different agents or, some of those kind of things, and just allowing your coaches to be resources for you in that area. Again, when you have those kind of goals, there's a different work ethic, and there's a different, set of standards that you probably have for yourself. So making those known to people that can be in your corner and can help you along the way, I think are really important. I think for somebody that's looking to get into college coaching, I think, again, same, like let your coaches know, because a lot of times it's the who you knows when you get into college coaching. And then let your college coach reach out to their who you knows and start kind of putting some words out there, and their advice too of kind of what you should be looking for in a great program or a great fit or great opportunities. And I think that's key. It is a lot about who you know, and then how you get your contacts made from there.
Of course, what advice would you give those assistant coaches looking to get started and then one day become head coaches?
Yeah, I think for an assistant coach that's looking to become a head coach, I think a lot of it is, not getting comfortable in what you know. And I think that was something I always really appreciated about working for AJ at South Dakota State was, every year I'd kind of feel like, okay, this is my role. I'm the travel coordinator this, last year. So now I know what I'm doing in travel. I'm just going to be able to pick up and move to the next step. And then, that next year he might completely flip it around and somebody else is the travel. And I was like, and it kind of, made me nervous and those kind of things those first few times because it was like, no, that's what I know. But it always pushed me outside of my comfort zone to learn new things, new sides of things. One year I was working with post players. I'm 5'2", and I was one of the post coaches. And I was like, I don't know anything about how to coach a post, but I learned so much in that year of working with post players that I feel very prepared to recruit well and to coach, our post players now. And had he not put me in those positions, I don't know how well suited I'd be to be able to be a head coach. So and those are the things I think as an assistant coach is, don't let yourself get into a routine or a rut of just doing what you know already. And maybe it's not always a staff where you get to just change jobs around all the time. But also, even if recruiting isn't maybe your specific expertise, you can also try to come up with new ideas for ways to help within recruiting, new ideas to bring in and those kind of things, and just push yourself outside of your comfort zones and the areas that you are in, because as a head coach, your hands are in everything. And so the more comfortable you are in everything, the easier that next step is for sure.
What advice would you give those head coaches looking to build their own program and build their own legacy?
I think to that point of some of that advice that, we talked about with incoming freshmen is kind of maybe similar with incoming head coaches with kind of that 2 feet in mindset of, you got to be all in on what you're selling to your recruits and to your team about, the culture that you want to establish. You really have to know the non-negotiables with that. But then also, as I had mentioned earlier, when I talked about the experience I learned from Drake, where there was those, those learning lessons of you can't just be stuck in your ways either. And so I think that's a fine line of like knowing your non-negotiables, but also not being stuck in your ways. You've got to find how that meshes well for you as a coach. And I think early on, I had to learn as a young coach that, wins and losses aren't always a key successor or key determiner of what your success is as a coach. And when all I was focused on was the record at the end of the season, I really lost sight of, the real joy of coaching. Don't get me wrong, we need to win and we have goals to win, but the way you do it, the how you get there, I think is the most important piece.
What advice would you give those people such as yourself that are balancing being a mother and a college coach?
Oh, man, that's one that I think I'm still trying to always, wrap my mind around and trying to still find what works. My kids are just getting into that stage. I have a 10, 8, and 5-year-old. And so, my 10-year-old is starting to just, really get into, her own sports with, travel basketball and, travel softball and all of those kind of things. And, that no stage is easy. The younger stage is hard because they're needy and they need, their parents to be there for a lot, but also this stage is hard because you're starting to miss some things along the way. But I know for me, it's the tribe, it's the people around you, it's, leaning on that support system of, a great partner, a great spouse. Even my assistant coaches are incredible with helping with that. They are like my pseudo aunties for my kids, and they, attend their events, and they, love on them just as much as my own family does. And so those are the thing, there's some give that you have to give as a mom coach. You can't maybe be there for everything. I've chosen to really focus on, I'm showing my kids what it means to work hard and to really give yourself into something, and how to, really set goals for yourself. And I hope they learn that part of the hard work. And yeah, they have to give a lot of their time with mom, but they also get some pretty cool experiences being around these awesome Mavericks all the time too. So I'm still learning how to manage that, and I'm taking advice from many other people as well.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with the Mavericks women's basketball program at?
Yep, we are on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all the necessary socials. So yeah, you can find us at Men's State WBB. And yeah, also Snapchat. We've got some Snapchat followers there too. So yeah, we'd love to have you follow our program, and those are probably the key spots there.
Thank you again, Coach Emilee Thiesse, for your interview, and best of luck in your future at Minnesota State Mavericks as the head women's basketball coach.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me today.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Emilee Thiesse, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
All right. Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.